Welcome to Austin, Texas and the FloMarching Studios for the pre-show edition of Taking the Field. I'm Emily Tanner-Patterson and I'm joined again today by Luke Gall. Luke, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It's been a hot second since you were here. What you been up to?
Band and more band.
Remind the folks at home who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Luke and I'm one of the co-founders and owners of Ultimate Drill Book.
So this must be a busy time of year for you guys because, you know, a lot of marching bands are just now getting into their band camps and preparation seasons.
Yeah, marching bands all around, at least the U.S., are starting right now.
Good
so
point.
This is the busy time for the United States season, but the marching arts is a year-round endeavor now.
Which is a wonderful thing. Marching band is beginning here in the U.S., but drum corps, our season is wrapping up. Today we have a really exciting show, Open Class Prelims. Let's take a look at our rankings going in. So, these are drum corps that we haven't necessarily seen a lot of, and Luke, this is the first time that all of these drum corps are coming together and getting direct head-to-head comparison. So it'll be interesting to see whether these rankings shuffle up. Of course, familiar names at the top: Vanguard Cadets, that's sponsored by Santa Clara Vanguard, and Blue Devils, their B Corps. And then of course we have some old names that we know really well, like the Legends, the Spartans, 7th Regiment, and some newer corps like Louisiana Stars and the Guardians, and some familiar names from World Class. Southwind, group that used to be World Class, folded, and then has now made a resurgence, first through Sound Sport and now in Open Class.
Yeah, as you said, this is the first time all season that all of these corps get to be in the same place at the same time. Because more or less, these corps are local. Of course, they generally have smaller tours, so they're not touring nationally necessarily. So they're touring locally, so they don't always get to see each other. So this is a first opportunity for the drum corps to go head-to-head, but also for the judges to get one read of everyone in the same night.
So it's possible that judges might even be seeing some of these groups for the first time today.
Yeah, so, and that's a tough thing to have as a judge, is have a first read and be it, on such an important show. But I think the judges have done a great job this year, and I think they will continue to do things, but I think we will see some shuffling as we were talking about.
So you mentioned that these groups are more local in their scope. Obviously, we've got groups traveling from all over the country to be at this competition, and we know of other groups that aren't here. Blue Devil C, for example, doesn't make this trip. What is the attraction for performers to participate in an open class corps versus a world-class corps that does a full national tour?
Well, I think in all ways that you look at Open Class Drum Corps, it's lowering the barrier to entry for not only the marchers, but for the families as well. So in a lot of cases, these are much younger marchers. They're still amazing. They're still great players and marchers and spinners and drummers and all the above. But they're younger, so maybe school is going into the beginning of the drum corps season, and so they want to have something that they can do during the summer still, but maybe not starting on May 15th.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these corps don't even move in. You know, Guardians is local to us, so I know I've had students march there. I know they didn't move in until, early July in some cases, back when they were doing even shorter tours than this year. So, in the case of my student, he had the opportunity to work a summer job, take a family vacation before he had to be in everyday drum corps rehearsal.
Yeah, and that's something that I have experience with too. My first drum corps marching experience was in a Division II drum corps.
Back when we called it that.
Back when it was still called Division II.
We're old.
Yeah, which is the equivalent of open class today. Right. And what we did is we did weekends. So we did every single weekend of the summer, and then we did 2 short tours, one 2-week tour and one 3-week tour. And they were split up. So it was much easier to manage. It wasn't so much away from home, especially for those of us who were really young.
How old were you, Luke?
I was 13.
Wow. So many of these performers are potentially away from their parents for the first long stretch ever.
Yeah. So, but it was a really important step for me, and it was a step that made me realize that, you know what, I can take that jump up to Division I or world class as we know it now. And I know some people who said, you know what, this is the place for me. I don't necessarily want to do any more than that, and that's great.
Which is great too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great that Drum Corps has both of those offerings.
Yep. And also for some groups who are eventually trying to work their way back into world class, doing the open class tour, building their financial backing, their know-how is really great option because, the less you tour, the less it costs. And that also is passed down to the performer as well.
Yeah, and it allows them to invest in other things as well, like a design team, an instructional team, where they can build some consistency over a few years, and that really helps with membership retention and getting firm grounding, firm stance in the community.
And creating a positive experience for their performers, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of lower barriers to entry, we have a really cool story about a young man from River City Rhythm, which is a core based in Anoka, Minnesota. Their show this year, Each Hour Wounds. Let's take a look.
I think just like being in drum corps in general is something like having two arms is kind of just a general benefit. It's stuff that I think about every day, like how can I blend more into the show, like become just a performer, not somebody that sticks out. I love DCI. It's something I've wanted to do for a while. I wasn't actually planning on marching this year. However, RCR did contact me about 3 days before move-in. Definitely physically challenging. I was not physically prepared, so I picked up a trumpet, and then 2 days later I was with the Corps.
He came in later in the season, once most of the camps were already done. Once he came to camp and we got into brass arc, no concerns.
Having one arm is kind of difficult with some of the instruments. It is a struggle sometimes, especially like when I'm getting on and off after shows and I have my shako, my shoebox, my trumpet case, my suitcase, like everything else, and I'm trying to all balance in one hand, but otherwise it works out great, I think.
To us and to a lot of us, he's another trumpet in the horn line, and if we saw something that needed to be modified, we would, without trying to overstep and provide accommodations that aren't really needed. So he's definitely a kid where if he can make it work and he wants to do it, it'll happen.
I love our show this year. It's such an exciting show to perform. Being on the field is so fun, and I'm so excited to just keep going up until finals week and have an amazing show and hopefully just keep rising up in like the point status.
What a really neat story.
Yeah, it's cool to see people who see a challenge and they want to meet it.
Absolutely. Well, it just goes to show the only barrier to you marching drum corps is yourself.
You're right. You're totally right about that.
Well, moving right along, we have some corps, just like in World Class, we've been talking about that sort of 8th through 11th spot for a long time. Here in Open Class, we're real thick right around the race for 6th place. So we have scores from a couple corps. Louisiana Stars, 7th Regiment, and Guardians are all in that hunt for 6th. Let's take a look at Guardians and 7th Regiment. Guardians are currently, I believe, in their 8th place. 7th Regiment is currently in 7th place. You can see these scores are from July 9th. And you can see here that Guardians are, July 29th. I apologize. These corps were probably not competing on July 9th. My bad. So you can see Guardians ended up just a skosh, I believe, to use your term, ahead of 7th Regiment. So what do you see when you check out these scores, Luke?
Well, I think the first thing that you see is that the numbers are really close across the board. So this is one of those any given night type of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things can fluctuate. But when you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, I think it's easy to sit on that general effect number. As we've seen all year, GE is kind of the thing that determines where you're going to finish in the pack. And so we see right here, just from a week ago, Guardians finishing about 0.3 above 7th Regiment in that GE range, and that's really what pushed them ahead.
Yeah. And Guardians are doing a lot of interesting things this year. Wearing Nikes instead of marching shoes. There's quite a bit of rap in their show.
Yeah, so they're a drum corps that's taking a lot of risk, I think, in ways that we're not seeing other drum corps take risks. So with the music selection, with the instrument selection, with the way that they're piecing together the uniform. So as I mentioned, yeah, they're wearing Nikes. They're wearing traditional kind of running shoes. They've worn ball caps in the past instead of the traditional shako and things like that. But they're also playing the music of Kendrick Lamar this year.
But along with Mahler,
right,
which is a traditional classical composer. So, they like to do a lot of that kind of mashup stuff.
Yeah, and as the design team has put this together, they've done some really interesting stuff because they're using Mahler and Kendrick Lamar to tell the same story. Their show, Damned, is kind of telling the story from damnation to salvation, as they say it. And both the Mahler music that they're using and the Kendrick Lamar music that they're using kind of tell that same story, but in much different musical ways.
Yep. So it results in a pretty interesting product on the field. And we've talked before about how the product of the show, the music, the drill, needs to match up to their performers. Given that they have a slightly younger membership, this is only their third time coming to championships. I think this is an experience the kids can really grab a hold of and dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a chance to visit them a couple weeks ago when they were here in Texas for San Antonio, and their membership is very hungry. Yeah, they are excited about this opportunity, although they know that they are new, so to speak, into the open class finals realm. They are not sitting on that. They want to keep pushing. So I think this could be one of those drum corps that we see make a climb.
Make some strides in the next couple of years. Well, again, they started as a sound sport team in 2013, took 11th in 2016, and now in 2018, you know, they're sitting on, what did I say?
Around that 8th range.
Yeah, around that 8th range and looking to climb up. We have a little clip of their drum line, Getting Better, so let's check it out. Getting better at some flams there, Luke.
Yeah, I love drum lines in the lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at a little more historic corps. The Spartans from Nashua, New Hampshire, their show, Da Vinci's Workshop. This corps has been around open class for a long time.
Yeah, they're actually a former champion of Division II, so it's cool to see them still kind of at the top.
Well, excellent. We're unfortunately running short on time here in Taking the Field land. We want to remind you to vote for your fan favorite at FloMarching.com. We'll bring those results to you after the show. And also that we have a lot of drum corps here on FloMarching this week. and so we want to remind you to tune in tomorrow for open class finals and for all of the world-class events Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Taking the Field will be back with you for both intermissions as well as after the scores today. We're going to take you now down to the field.